The Great Hack is actually the name of a documentary on Netflix that my wife and I watched a few weeks back, and it's interesting because we when we eat lunch together, we always try to find something on Netflix or Hulu or something. This documentary, so we can watch those things and be informed about stuff going on. Quite honestly, the story of the Great Hack is one that I had heard of very discreetly and didn't know hardly any of the details about it. But once we watched this 2 hour documentary on Netflix, we were it's one of those things we're always wanting to be informed. It didn't surprise us, but it is something that I believe everybody should know. So I passed that on to Sandy, Joe, and Sherry, and said, let's talk about this, because it goes along. The reason is because it goes along with. I should parenthetically title a lot of my little spiels as privacy and security versus public and insecurity. And I've been thinking about that for a long time, because I've done little documentaries on this, and it follows right along with our HR 5, the Equality Act, and all of that that's going on. It follows into that because it's all about our privacy and our security within the days and lives that we live. If you look back 20 years, 40 years, if you look through history, 60, 100 years ago, these privacy and security really weren't issues except for very rich people or people in power. The average Joe, like I am, and I'm not saying you, but if I'd say me or you, the average Joes, it really didn't. 100 years ago, and in the past from that, we didn't really deal with that. But today, the greater majority of people, let's just use United States, European areas, the bigger, more wealthy countries and continents, are on the internet. They're on their phone, which is part of the internet, the whole thing. And it is very, very, very vital that we understand where we stand with this. So privacy and security versus public and insecurity, I think, is probably should be, besides getting yourself saved and ready for the end times, probably the next number one issue. Now, it's interesting because we all know the definitions of privacy, security, public, and insecurity, but insecurity, I think, may be one of the lesser understandings that we have in there. So I looked them all up, but I seemed very different to me in the definition of insecurity, and the antonyms. The opposite of insecurity would be break, disagreement, those type of things. So anyway, let's talk about the documentary, and I highly suggest that you look this up if you have Netflix or have another way of watching it. It's my recommendation to watch The Great Hack, and it's a 2019 documentary film of about Facebook/Cambridge Analytica data scandal. Now, most of what I'm going to read here, because I really know what the movie's about, but I wanted to get details, so I'm using most of what I'm saying to you from an article called The Great Hack in Wikipedia. Also, the Facebook Cambridge Analytica data scandal. So you can look those up also in Wikipedia. But I'm going to give you a general rundown based on what they say, because I've read it several times now, and it's dead on. So I couldn't put together a better outline than what they had. So let me give you a little bit of background to especially Cambridge Analytica. I'm going to give you a little spiel here on what actually happened and who they are, how it started, that type of thing, because that is probably your key, most important understanding in all this. In 2015, Cambridge Analytica, a UK-based political consulting firm, began working on behalf of Ted Cruz's campaign for this last election for his presidential campaign, the Republican nomination. Cambridge Analytica used Facebook as a means for political voter surveillance through the collection of user data points. After Cruz dropped out of the race, Cambridge Analytica used the same strategies for Donald Trump's presidential bid. Independent investigations into what they called data mining led to a scandal over the influence of social media in political elections. In this documentary film, The Great Hack, the Cambridge Analytica scandal is examined through the eyes of several involved persons. So what you have in the documentary, you're going to see it actually put together as one of the main people is the person, the whistleblower that made it all public, plus another lady that was involved with the whole thing. And it's very interesting to see from the inside out of what happened through this documentary. Cambridge Analytica, the firm responsible for the scandal, was dedicated to big data. The data which was collected was meant to be used in sales strategy. That was their original idea of what they wanted to do with this company. It's interesting. Matter of fact, let me just jump down to Alexander Kogan, a data scientist at Cambridge University, developed an app called This Is Your Digital Life. Sorry, This Is Your Digital Life. He provided the app to Cambridge Analytica, and they in turn arranged an informed consent process for research in which several 100,000 Facebook users would agree to complete a survey only for academic use. However, Facebook's design allowed this app not only to collect the personal information of people who agreed to take the survey, but also the personal information of all the people in those users' Facebook social network. In this way, Cambridge Analytica acquired data from millions of Facebook users. Now, even if it seemed to be the objective of the firm, Cambridge Analytica, the data ended up being used to create a huge thinking machine, which reached the point of literally destabilizing countries and disrupt all different societies. And it affected from the top of many different presidents and people in charge of countries, all the way down to the person that just barely makes it every day and is on the internet. It affected literally the planet, and in everything that they were doing. Everything else that had to do with interesting. I'm getting a call from Durham, England, United Kingdom. How about that? during this, I'm getting a call from them. So I have no idea. This has been a crazy day. Anyway, let me get on here a little bit more here. For Cambridge Analytica had harvested the personal data of millions of people's Facebook profiles without their consent and used it for political advertising purposes. It had been described as a watershed moment in the public understanding of personal data and precipitated a massive fall in Facebook stock prices and calls for tighter regulation of tech companies' use of personal data. The illicit harvesting of personal data by Cambridge Analytica was first reported in December 2015 by Harry Davies, a journalist for The Guardian. He reported that Cambridge Analytica was working for United States Senator Ted Cruz using data harvested from millions of people's Facebook accounts without their consent. Facebook refused to comment on the story other than to say it was investigating. More than $100 billion was knocked off. More than $100 billion was knocked off Facebook's market capitalization in days. After this was made public, they literally lost $100 billion in their marketing capitalization. And politicians in the US and UK demanded answers from Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg. The scandal eventually led to him agreeing to testify in front of the United States Congress. In this documentary, The Great Hack, you will see part of that interview, or that him testifying. Finally, The Observer and the New York Times reported that dataset has included information on 50 million Facebook users, while Cambridge Analytica claimed it had only collected 30 million Facebook user profiles. Facebook later confirmed that it had actually had data on up to 87 million users. Only 87 million users, with 70.6 million of those people from the United States. 70.6 million of those people that they stole data from out of 87 million were from the United States. Within the United States, Facebook estimated that California was the most, so on and so forth. Facebook sent a message to those users believed to be affected, saying the information likely included one's public profile, page likes, birthday, and current city. Some of the app's users gave the app permission to access their newsfeed, timeline, and messages. The data was detailed enough for Cambridge Analytica to create psychographic profiles. I think it's all psychographic, of the subjects of the data. The data also included the locations of each person for a given political campaign. The data was detailed enough to provide, to create a profile which suggested what kind of advertisement would be most effective to persuade a person in a particular location for some political event. I think we've found that it's everywhere. This is just an isolated event, if you ask me, because we constantly, for instance, we go looking for an exercise machine on the internet to buy an exercise machine. And for the next week, every website we go to that has advertisements for exercise machines. And we only went to a couple of places looking for exercise machines, and their advertisements are everywhere. So come on, don't tell me that it was just they're looking for user data, and the algorithms that they use on the internet don't completely violate our privacy. Now, that's my take on that, and I'm sticking to it. As you can probably see, I've seen hide nor hair of any of it. But my point here is our privacy versus public and security versus insecurity. We literally do not have privacy and security as we once knew it, and we didn't do anything to cause this to happen except want to um, expand our knowledge and look for entertainment, which is the internet these days has the most of that and the best of that, and we can do what we want. Look at the Lamb Network. We're in our 8th year, going on 9, and we can do all we want to on the internet, but yet, like this morning, several things have happened to me for some reason, and but also, I suggest watching the segment that I put together from last Monday's Let Us Reason Together show. John Craig also said a lot about some of this, and I put together that segment. I'd also like to tie it to this because there's a lot there. Now, one of the things that I said on that segment that John was talking about was literally to put in false information. When you fill out your social media little accounts there when you get started, there's absolutely nothing wrong with putting in false information. Absolutely. It's not a lie. You're just putting in social media. None of that stuff is really supposed to ever be seen by anybody but you and the social media you're putting the information into. Now, whatever you're involved now, you can go back and change all your information. Of course, like a credit card, that type of thing, things that do involve being background checked and stuff like that. Obviously, you have to put in the right information, but it is my suggestion that you don't just randomly put in your own stuff, randomly put in the other stuff. So that's kind of basically what I'm saying here. It really goes along with the HR 5 stuff that we've been talking about, because it all ties into our security and all the public things that are out there that we don't want to be involved in. So let's bring everybody back in and see what we got to say. John, what do you think, brother?
All right, so we had to unmute there. I was thinking about this story, and I've been thinking about it since I watched the movie The Great Hack, and about some of the things that came out even recently about it. And of course, we see The Great Hack is about how the Republicans had used it in the last election, and yet it was actually developed originally in the Obama administration, and how one of the key players, and I don't remember her name, was it Rebecca Mercer?
Yeah.
She came from Facebook, and she came from the Obama campaign, where she helped develop the ability to use social media in their campaign. And
in fact, they even mentioned that just in one line on The Great Hack. They said, well, Obama did it first, but then they focus.
Of course. So everything blew up with during the Mueller investigation, and it was kind of a footnote on the screen when it regards to the Mueller investigation. But there was an interesting hearing in Congress involving Dr. Robert Epstein, who, by the way, he's a college professor. And he's a Hillary supporter, but he's also very objective. And he was actually talking about how these algorithms are used and in order to shape our mindset. And those people that are kind of on the line and they're not quite fully decided, how they use the algorithms, how they use this information to nudge people towards a particular persuasion. in order to build votes for one party or the other. And Dr. Robert Epstein was talking about how Google and Facebook and these social medias, especially Google, was which is the number one search engine, which I don't recommend, but is number one search engine that's out there, and people put in information. Well, they give you the information they want you to know. And if you look at it, if you want to look for something positive for Trump, you're going to be looking at going down multiple pages before you find something positive. I mean, it's how they're shaping our mindset to shift people away from particular political persuasions and that type of thing. So I think it's very eye-opening. And I remember Sandy and I were talking about how it was several years ago. It was many years ago when we had gotten on Facebook. They used to have all these surveys, and they said, what are you? I don't know. If you were a car, what type of car would you be? Or if you were a animal, what type of animal would you be? And they had all these questions and stuff. And it was gathering information. It was about making something that was kind of fun and cutesy and that type of thing. But ultimately, it was about gathering information, who we are, so they could shape advertisement and send advertisement our direction. Now, since President Trump was elected, how are they using this information? They're using it now to censor people that do not agree with their political agenda. In fact, it was the head of Apple, I forget his name right now, but he was talking about how they feel like it's their social responsibility to put people into place to monitor what's being said, in order that if something is out there that they don't want people to hear or they don't believe is true, that they will censor that outlet or that voice. And of course, the number one voice that was censored was Alex Jones. And ultimately, there's been several hundred conservative voices that are in the media or the alternative media that have been silent since then, that if you use particular terms, they're going to cut you off. In fact, if you use the term of who this whistleblower is, and you say his name, Facebook will censor you and cut you out, or it'll be removed from your Facebook. So these are all different things of how these algorithms and AI, the artificial intelligence, is being used. Now they just use our voices. They recognize our voice. If Alex Jones's voice pops up on some of these social media, it automatically censors him. In fact, there was a particular time that on Facebook, that unless you said something negative about Alex Jones, it would not allow you to post it. So you had to say something negative, and then they would let you post the article or whatever it was. So this is the shaping, and they feel like they need to have gatekeepers versus allowing us to decide what we want to listen to, what we want to hear, what we want to read. They feel like they've got to put the gatekeepers into place, and train the AI in order to be a gatekeeper, in order to shape the thought of our culture. And it's all part of this great hack where they've taken our information and they're using it against it. Now they're using real time. And Dr. Robert Epstein was actually talking about how the biggest concern, it happened in the 2018 elections and now in the 2020 elections, as they're 1 year away, how these algorithms can shape and push the elections away from Donald Trump, just simply by how they manipulate the data. And
well, you got to understand, it's not just one side. It's not just the Republicans.
Yes,
has this information. I mean,
yes.
the Democrats have any same algorithms and stuff. They can do the same thing.
Yeah,
for their own good.
And he even said from his own calculations that the 2016 elections, with what Google did and these other social media, they were able to shift some 3 to 5% of the votes towards Hillary Clinton, and still President Trump won.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing number of people that were nudged in a certain direction based on how they took data and fed it to people that
Sure.
knowing where their inclinations were, they could just maximize the stuff that they didn't want to hear and make that the mudslinging against the candidate that those social media platforms, moved away from the candidate they didn't want. So,
well, but not only do you have this algorithm, on the left side, you have all of the media, you have all of Hollywood, you have all of everything that's also given them that slant. Not only these little.
Yeah, it's true.
I
mean,
that other side
90
has.
I think they've said anywhere from 92 to 97% of all of the regular media is negative towards President Trump. So, I mean, these people that aren't even on social media, I mean, they've got the whole machine that's
geared towards that.
Yeah, that's spiking all the information against
Well, let me just say,
Bible believers and stuff.
Real quickly, people that believe the media don't really do any research for themselves anyway. If they're going to believe what the media says, they're so involved with the whole rest of the world, they really don't care what the truth is. They're just out there just getting their information because, okay, you do the research for me and tell me what it is, because I really don't want to do the research. So they believe the media. Now, on the other hand, we do our research because we are involved and we do want to make the right decision, not based on somebody else's research, but our own research. And another thing in what you were saying, you can reason anything. I mean, whatever their reason for doing things, you can manipulate that reason into whatever your perspective is. Sandy.
I'm just up there with John, so I'm going to pass the torch to Joe. By the way, before that though, millennials don't do research. Millennials believe what the media says, lock, stock, and barrel.
I knew there was something I liked about you, Sandy. I knew
But Brittany Kaiser was in this documentary.
Right,
she did a lot of information, and one of the things that came out was psychological warfare. She said that when she was being interviewed for everything that was going on in the issue, and I thought that was kind of interesting how she spouted that out. And AI's taken over, and we've got and Tova had mentioned it earlier in the chat room about 23andMe, how the DNA had been stolen or whatever. That's what they say. Well, I was reading this article real quick earlier and I couldn't find it, and now I found it. It says, after you spit into a tube for a DNA test like 23andMe, experts say you shouldn't assume your data will stay private forever. Now they've been collecting our DNA with these 23andMe situations and stuff. And what's interesting is I like to watch the Marvel Comics shows. And a lot of these shows seem to bring forth things that are going to happen in the future. Like you've seen Star Trek, the flip phones, the iPads, and all this stuff. Well, there was an episode on Arrow that was really interesting to me with this topic of hacking and everything, where this girl was making an algorithm to find everybody's DNA that's out there. That if their DNA had touched a doorknob or something electronic, that, hey, we know where they're at.
Interesting.
And I thought, isn't that interesting? Because I just finished watching the documentary, The Hack, and then watched this show. And here we have this article that I had read that I'll share it in the chat room as well, the website here in a minute, but about our DNA being collected. And it says it may be getting easier to link your private and anonymized DNA data to your identity. So here they are. They're going to collect our DNA. Like, for example, in my family's DNA, we have retinitis pigmentosus. So here they're going to have that. Okay, this means these people, they can have an issue where they could be blind. Do we really want this in our society? We need to collect that information and bring it forth. They've been collecting DNA on us way before 23andMe, guys. They've been doing it way before. Even eye specialists, when I would go to the eye specialist, they would want my blood, which, by the way, the Father prevented that. Thank you, Father. To test it, because they were trying to test the DNA to see if they can fix the DNA strand of these eye diseases that are out there, like retinitis pigmentosa, macular degeneration. And this was the excuse to collect your DNA, and we didn't even realize it.
You can reason out anything. You can reason anything you want and make it for you.
Exactly. And people take it wholeheartedly. And today, there's still those algorithms and questionnaires on Facebook. Find out what color person you are. Find out what type of personality you have. And people are like, hey, let's find out. I want to know. Why do you need to know? Especially if you're a believer, God the Father made you who you are. And we just talked about it earlier, Sandy. Let's look back and see the things that we have done in our past to bring us to what we are and who we are today. Those blessings and the things to have us grow, instead of looking at what some algorithm's going to tell us, some computer's going to tell us. AI is just taking control. And just, if you're going to Google, here's a new Google thing out there. Google's taken over everything, but there's a new app out there. It's called DuckDuckGo app. And that app, as soon as you finish doing your search, you take and it's got a little fire flame. It completely removes it. And it's better than Google, because Google tracks you. The other thing that tracks you, your iPhone. It listens to you. It takes pictures of where you go if you're using it for internet use. It takes pictures. I have seen it take pictures of my phone. I have seen this thing turn on. This thing tracks you. It listens to you. A friend of mine, Cheryl, you guys, my little friend Cheryl, her and her daughter decided to do an experiment. They put their phones way on the other side of the house and they talked. And this thing still heard what they were talking about. The next thing you know, their whole Facebook was full of birdhouses. That's what the topic was about. Birdhouses. So everything birdhouse, how to build a birdhouse, where to buy a birdhouse, how to paint a birdhouse, everything that had to do with birdhouses. So it's
not going away.
No, it's not. It's getting more and more. It's more and more, and we need to be careful what we say, how we say it. And in fact, my mom, the other day we were on the phone, she goes, you know what? We need to be careful how we talk even on our phones. Because they are listening to our phones and they're taking that information, they're putting it into a computer system. And this is all sci-fi stuff back in the 1980s and 70s.
It really is. You're right.
And it's becoming reality. I mean, even the cartoon George Jetson stuff is becoming reality.
Real quick, you said something about the phone. When you're talking about the phone, I want you guys to know that every picture you take takes a picture from the other side every time you do it.
Oh, really?
Well,
yes.
People go into the bathroom with these.
I didn't know.
You go take a shower and you're going to the bathroom. Hello, people. It's a camera.
Water closet.
Camera.
Hey, Joe, we say water closet on here, not bathroom. Water closet.
It was a big deal when, like, Trump's son-in-law, he went and took a picture of something and it took a picture of his face, so it proved something. But every time, folks, you take a picture, it's taking a picture from the opposite side. You don't get it, they get it. So every time.
Serious. That's the first I've ever heard that.
Yep.
It's warfare, because think about it. We've got these drones now. The soldiers aren't going into planes anymore and things. They're going and they're playing almost like a video game in a drone. And the drone is coming in. They're now trying to make drones to deliver your packages and your groceries now. They know if you have one of those apps like a Kroger app or a Safeway app, whatever grocery store you guys have, and you have that app and you put your grocery list, they now know what foods you're buying. Yeah. And your credit card, hey, they got that chip in there.
Yeah, right.
Now they have a chip in your credit card.
I love that chip. Well, that's cool, man. Just put that sucker right up in there. Done deal. That's a whole lot less work putting it up in there than swiping it. Man, I love that chip.
Last night, guys, my son-in-law just bought a car, okay? He just bought a brand new 2019 Honda Civic. This thing is freaky. I'm not kidding. I kind of joked and told him and said, "Move over, dude. I can drive this car now."
Did
He was
you call it Kit? When you got in it, did you say, "Hey, Kit, what's up"?
Yeah, sure. No, I said Johnny Cab.
Oh, okay, there you
He
go.
was sitting in his seat and he says, "I got to show you something really cool." He took his feet off the pedals and we're driving along, and all of a sudden the car in front of him stopped and it slowed down and stopped, came to a complete stop. And he goes, "I didn't touch the brake at all." He didn't touch the brake at all.
Right.
This car drives on its own now. And I'm just sitting there thinking of Minority Report, the movie Minority Report, where Tom Cruise gets in the car and he's trying to escape and they lock the whole thing in. And I'm going, oh, great. Does this thing open? You know?
We have our Lexus in the shop, the Toyota shop, being serviced right now. So they gave us a 2019 Corolla. It does exactly the same thing. It even dims the headlights or makes the headlights big. It does all of those things. And
you have that what TV screen?
Yeah,
you've got that camera. I mean, my son-in-law is a trooper. Okay, so he's showing me all these things. He says this is what's been in police trooper vehicles for many years now, and he says this camera up here, it is now a camera in the rear view mirror. There's a camera, so if something happens like an accident or something, it goes right to the internet so that your insurance company can get the information right away. And I'm like, they're watching us. They're, we're talking about things and they're watching us in this car as well. So you can't even get in your car today if you have a newer car like a 2019 or early, later, and drive around with any privacy. There is no privacy. Privacy does not exist. We've lost. People say freedom in this country. Mark, our freedom. We sold our freedom to technology.
That's true. Very, very well put. I remember when cruise control came out and you could buy this little thing and hook it up to your column and hook it up, but they could do it in the service department and you could have cruise control. Man, I got one as soon as I could possibly get one. I thought that was the coolest thing. Now it's in every car. It's literally in every car. And all of these things will be in even the cheapest car that you can buy. Those things, all the tracking devices, all the different stuff will be in every car, and you can't unhook it because it's part of that computer control.
In California, my brother in California is telling me he has an old 1996 Chevy. And he says they're telling me that I have to go and buy and turn it in and get a newer vehicle because of the global, warming issue or climate issue, whatever they're calling it today in California. They are really, really starting to AI California big time.
I don't know.
You have those ID cards that are coming out in 2020. You've heard about those, right? To travel the United States.
Oh yeah,
we got those now coming out. So you got to have all that information. So again,
we can go on and on and on.
It all started before even this.
It did, and we need to remember that. Mark, I'm going to let you wrap it up.
And that is the wrap up. I mean, it's just there's no stopping it. That's my final say. Is there's no stopping it, and it is involved in every person's life. Well, even if you have internet or not, it's involved in your life. So, I mean, I've talked to people that say, well, I don't have internet. I don't have all that kind of stuff. So it's not involving me. That's not true at all.
Not true.
Not true at all. Every person, all the soon it'll be 10 billion people on this planet. I heard the other day.
And, not if the powers that be have their way.
I'm with you. Okay. Well, that's it.
Refrigerators and stuff. Be careful with those too.
I don't want a refrigerator that knows what I need. I don't want that. I don't want a car that drives it. I don't want that. But still out there. So
Well, it doesn't make any difference. You can't stop it.
Yeah.
So why not just embrace it? That's what I have to say. You can't stop it, so embrace it. Get the refrigerator that knows what you get. The car that has all the bells and whistles, and then say, I have no hide nor hair of anything that's going on.
Yeah.
Or smart toilets that
Smart toilets.
Oh, that was in Japan.
the smart toilets. They're scanning your output to see if you have a deficit.
Yeah.
seriously,
They're developing them. Yes.
No way. No way. I refuse to believe that.
That is
okay,
true.
Mark, you want to embrace it all? Go get yourself a toilet.
It's true.
Will it give me something so I can play solitaire while I'm on the
What was that movie?
while I'm in the water closet?
What was that movie on the cloning, Sandy? That we
Replicas?
No, the one that was way back, and they cloned for the organs, and the guy wakes
the
up.
island.
Yeah, the
Island.
island. And he uses the bathroom in the morning. He says, "You got too much sodium," and immediately when he goes to the cafeteria, no bacon for you.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
It's amazing what Hollywood is showing us, and it's happening, and we're just like, oh, it's just a movie. It's just a movie, man.
Look what Desiree says. Oh my John. Good one, Desiree. That's a good one. I love
The
it.
things
All
we talk about on this show.
right. Yeah.
True. But
Well,
no,
That's my final thing is, hey, ain't nobody going to stop it. We're on a full train locomotive train ride that just has no brake on it. That's all there is to it. And that's what's going on. You can't stop it. So just embrace it.
An EMP.
No, I will fight it all the way. So, oh well. Hey, everybody, we want to thank you for joining us today. Hey, do some research on your own on The Great Hack. Get informed. Go watch the show. And, you just trust and pray and what you're supposed to do. That's all I can say.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.